Hey guys, welcome to another craft break. I am Bianca, a content creator here at Plaid. And if you watch along with me weekly, you know that we make fun Mod Podge projects together. Today we will be transforming a foam pumpkin into a beautiful fall centerpiece for your fall tablescape. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna pull out the finished project, and then I'll let you know what the supplies will be for the project. So this is what we will be crafting today. Let's see if we can get the full thing over here. So this is the project that we will be creating, and then I'll also go over some of the plaid surfaces that you can pair with your finished project so that you can have a beautiful centerpiece. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna switch over to our overhead camera, and I'm gonna go through all of the supplies that you will need for this project, and then we will go ahead and we will get started. So you of course want to grab some Mod Podge. For this project, you can use our matte or our gloss or our satin formula. It's totally up to you and how you want the finish on your pumpkin to look. But today I will be using matte. You can grab this on plaidonline.com. We have this in 16 ounces and we also have it in 8-ounce bottles. So after you have your Mod Podge, you want to grab a foam pumpkin. You can even use a real pumpkin for this project. I prefer to use a foam pumpkin because it is something that you can keep year after year and you don't have to worry about it decomposing, but you can definitely use a real pumpkin if you would like to. And if you do decide to go with a foam pumpkin, another tip would be to grab a foam pumpkin that is hollow. That way you don't have to dig out the middle of it, and we'll talk about that more in just a second. So you're gonna grab your pumpkin, and then you want to grab some decorative napkins. So these are the napkins that I will be using for this project. I'm gonna talk about the pattern on these napkins a little bit more in just a second. You're also gonna need some scissors, you're gonna need paint brushes, you're gonna need an X-Acto knife, or you can use a kitchen knife. You wanna make sure you're grabbing one that is pretty sharp and one that can cut through whatever type of pumpkin that you will be using. You are also gonna need some paint. So today I am using our Folk Art Metallic Pure Gold color. You guys can grab this on plaidonline.com. And also, these two things are separate, but if you do want to include these in your final project, you guys can grab this wood bead tassel on plaidonline.com. And then I also have our round beaded wooden plaque. You guys can find this on plaidonline.com. You guys can also find this in Walmart. So these two things are separate from the pumpkin that we will be making, but you can definitely grab those as well. And then the last thing you're gonna need for this project is some florals. So I have a bunch of floral here. You guys can use faux floral or you can use real floral. And then there's actually one more thing. This is optional, and I will talk about this a little bit more in detail, but you're also gonna need some tape or some floral foam. So those are all of the supplies for this project. We will go ahead and we will get started. So the first thing you want to do is grab an X-Acto knife or a sharp kitchen knife or anything that you have at home that is sharp enough to cut through your pumpkin. I've already gone ahead and I have cut off the stem of my pumpkin. And you do want to make sure that you are creating a hole that is big enough to hold however much floral you want in your vase. So I would say that this is about a medium-sized hole. Don't worry about getting it perfect. It doesn't matter in the end. You can see mine is a little bit wonky, but that is okay. So you're gonna cut the top off, and then the second step for this project is to go ahead and base coat your pumpkin. Whatever type of napkins that you will be using for this project, you wanna make sure that you are base coating your pumpkin with a color that is close to it. So I have these kind of ivory pumpkins here, so I base coated my pumpkin white because once we apply this to the pumpkin, you're gonna be able to see through it a little bit, and you don't want hot pink under your white napkin. So whatever napkin you do go with, make sure that you are base coating your pumpkin with a similar color. So you wanna let that dry, so I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna set my pumpkin off to the side. And then you're gonna grab your decorative napkins. And so I have these here. So these are rectangle napkins, but you can definitely use smaller ones, but the bigger the better, because then you get more coverage and you don't have to make as many cuts for your napkins. But these are the napkins that I am using, and you want to open your napkin all the way up, and you want to remove the backing from your napkin. Some napkins have 1 ply, some have 2. This particular napkin has 2 ply. So I will open one up and I will show you how to remove the backing from it. And sometimes it is a little bit difficult to remove the backing or the second backing from your napkin. And what you can do is grab a piece of tape and apply it onto the back of the napkin, and then when you pull the tape, the ply will come off with the tape. So this is just the first ply. You want to make sure that you are pulling it off slowly so that you don't rip your actual napkin. You can ball this up, or you can keep it off to the side to wipe up any mess that you make. So I'm going to grab a piece of tape because this second ply is a little bit hard to get off. So I'm just going to add a tab right here at the top. And then I'm going to hold my napkin lightly, and I'm going to pull the tape. And it pulls off that second backing. So you want to pull slowly, and it'll pull that right off. And we take the backing off because when we apply our napkin onto our pumpkin, we want the napkin to stick down. And if you don't take the ply off, only the backing from the napkin will stick to your pumpkin. And then that will leave you with a bunch of wrinkles and air bubbles. So we are taking this off. So again, you just want to do this slowly. And then you will be ready to cut your napkin. All right, so that is how you remove the ply from your napkin. Again, you may have 1 ply or you may have 2. Whichever type you have, just make sure you get all of it off. So I'm gonna set these off to the side. I already have some pieces of napkin that I have gone ahead and cut. And we may need to cut these a little bit more in just a second, but they are ready to go. So I am going to grab my dried pumpkin, and then we are also gonna grab our Mod Podge and a paintbrush, and we are gonna begin applying the Mod Podge directly onto the pumpkin. Again, I am using the matte formula, but you can also use satin. You can also use gloss. So if you have either one of those at home, feel free to use either formula. All right, so I'm gonna go in sections. You don't wanna cover your entire pumpkin at once. Mod Podge can dry pretty quickly, so you don't wanna have to do a second coat again. So we're gonna go in sections, and I'm gonna grab my first napkin piece, and I am going to slowly lay it on. And then I'm gonna use my fingers to tap my napkin down. Now this is a project where you will be left with some wrinkles and some air bubbles, and that is totally fine. This is a rounded surface, so it's not gonna be perfect, even if it was a flat surface. Decoupaging, sometimes it just comes out wrinkled, and that's okay. I think it adds a little bit of texture to the final project. So I am using my finger to lay our napkin down. And if your pumpkin is a little bit bigger and you find it hard to lay down one entire piece of your napkin, you can cut it into smaller strips or into different pieces, and that makes it a little bit easier to apply them onto your pumpkin. I would not bother going all the way underneath your pumpkin. That's not something that you're ever gonna see, so you can just cut off the excess napkin. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that now. And that is how you lay your napkin on. So we'll go around the pumpkin and we will do the rest of it. If you guys have any questions as we go through this project, just let us know. Steven is here with me. He will let me know what you guys are asking and I will get those questions answered. All right, so we have one down and a few more to go. I'm just going over it again with my finger and I'm lightly tapping, getting any excess wrinkles out and air bubbles. And you want to tap lightly to make sure that you are not ripping the napkin. All right, so I'll hold that up close so you guys can see it. All right, so we're gonna move on to our other pieces. So again, I am adding a light coat. You don't want to add too much because you don't want to make your napkin soggy. So you want to do a light coat of the Mod Podge and then you want to apply your napkin. And you're just going to repeatedly do this until your pumpkin is fully covered. So I'll flip this up so you guys can see it. And when you are picking out a napkin for this project, anytime you're decoupaging with a napkin, I always suggest using a busy pattern. You want to try not to pick a napkin that has straight lines because it's kind of hard to match up those lines, especially on a project like this where your surface is a little bit more round. It's not going to work out. So you want to get a busy pattern where if your napkin pieces don't necessarily match up when you put them together, you can't really notice. All right, so again, I'm just using my finger to tap, tap, tap. Take your time at home. Tapping slowly, trying your best to get as many of those wrinkles out. Again, it is not going to be perfect, but you do want to take your time and try to get it as nice and neat as possible. And this is a pretty quick project, very easy, I would say. I would say on a scale of 1 to 10, you probably need a crafting skill level of maybe about 2, maybe even 3.
Bianca, where do you find your napkins?
So I really like going to Home Goods to find napkins. They have beautiful decorative napkins for all seasons. Another place that you wouldn't expect to find really nice napkins is Ross. So I would suggest going there, and sometimes you can find some really, really, really nice decorative napkins in Dollar Tree. So those are my favorite places to find napkins. But basically home stores. And of course some craft stores. Now there is decoupaging paper that you can use, but napkins are typically a lot less costly. Sometimes you can get away with getting a really nice pack for $1, but you can also use decoupage paper for this type of project too. All right, so we have a few more pieces to go, but you guys can see just how quick this is. And I will hold it up so that you can see my progress. So you can already see the pumpkin transforming. So about 3 more pieces and we'll be ready to move on to our next step. Let us know what type of fall projects you guys are working on or what you plan to work on soon. We would love to hear about them, especially if they involve Mod Podge. Some other cool projects that you can do this same technique on for your table would be some candles. So if you wanted to incorporate some candles into your centerpiece, you can grab some pillar candles from any dollar store or crafting store. And the exact same technique that I'm doing right now, you can use to cover your napkins. I'm sorry, not your napkins, your candles. And you can also add those to your centerpiece, or the candles can just be the centerpieces themselves. You can also cover the surfaces that I showed you guys earlier, right before we got started. You can also cover those with napkins. If you want to incorporate those two into your centerpiece, you can definitely do that as well. All right, so 2 more pieces and I think we should be good to go. And then we're gonna grab our gold paint and we're gonna lightly go over our pumpkin just to give it a little more texture and a pop of gold and a little bit of glam. I am following our fall color palette here, so I wanted to make sure that I included some gold. And then I also talk a little bit more about the color that I chose to paint my wood plaque with. And again, if you didn't catch that earlier, I am just tapping lightly. You don't want to rub, never rub, you want to tap. You don't want your napkin to tear. It is very thin, especially since we took the backing off of it. So you want to tap and never rub. All right. So again, I'm tapping, I'm getting all of those wrinkles out. And we're just folding it over the edge here. Don't worry about getting it perfect around this area. This is going to be covered with a whole bunch of floral in just a second. So let's see. And by the time you get around to the other side of your pumpkin, the other side where we have added the napkins should be dry. If it is not, you can let your pumpkin sit for a little while, maybe about 20 minutes, and it should be ready to go. Or you can grab a blow dryer, or you can grab one of our heating tools on plaidonline.com. I'll show you guys that in just a second as well. And you can do either to help speed up the drying time, but Mod Podge dries pretty fast, so you might not have to, but if you need to, you can use a blow dryer or our heating tool. All right, so we have one more napkin to go. And we should be good to go to move on to our next step. So I'm adding my last coat. I'm gonna grab one more napkin. All right. Now I am intending for this project to be a vase, but you guys can definitely get creative at home and use this for other things. I think that this would be a really cool wine bottle holder. So if you're entertaining, you can add in some ice. You might want to insulate it a little bit, maybe with some foil. That way it doesn't sweat through and mess up the napkins on the outside of your pumpkin. But you can use this as an ice bucket for your wine bottles or your champagne bottles. You can also use this as a candle holder, maybe on a smaller scale. Get a glass pillar and add in some candles. Make a few of these, and these could also be a really nice centerpiece. All right, so we have our last piece applied. I am going to grab my heating tool and I'm going to quickly go over this. And then we'll move on to the next step, which, as far as crafting goes, is the last step for this project. So this is our heating tool. You guys can find this on plaidonline.com. I'm gonna go ahead and turn it on. The other side of my pumpkin is dry and ready to go, but we just did this one, so we're gonna speed up the drying time on this just a little bit. Perfect. All right, so that dried pretty quickly. So the next step is to grab a paintbrush, and we're gonna go over this with our Folk Art metallic pure gold color. And I'm just gonna grab a paintbrush here. This step is optional, but I wanted to add some pops of gold, so I am dipping my paintbrush into the metallic gold paint. I'm offloading it just a little bit. I don't want to overdo it with the gold. I don't want to cover up the napkin. I just want to add pops of gold. So I'm lightly going over it, and I am following the direction of the pumpkin ridges. And what I think is really cool is where the wrinkles are that I did not get out. Now that we are adding the gold onto it, those wrinkles kind of catch the gold, and it really adds a nice texture. I'll hold that up in just a second so you guys can see it. So I'm just lightly going over it. This dries pretty quickly as well, but again, you can use our heating tool, or if you have a blow dryer at home, you can use that as well. So again, just pops. You don't want to overdo it with the paint because we don't want to cover the design of the napkin. And then you want to let this dry, and you'll be ready to add in your floral. All right, so that is done. After you have painted on your gold paint, if you would like to, you can add another layer of Mod Podge on top to seal and protect your project. It is not a necessary step, but if you do feel like you'll be using your project in a place where it could possibly get messed up, or a place that will have a lot of traffic around it, you can definitely add a top coat to protect your napkin. So I'm gonna hold this up so you guys can see the gold paint a little better. So when you spin it, it shines. All right, so we are going to add in our floral. At home, you can use floral foam if that is what you have. If you don't have floral foam, you can grab some tape and you can make a little grid on top of your pumpkin. And this will kind of hold your floral in place. So I'm going to add 2 strips across. And of course, the bigger your hole is on your pumpkin, you may have to use a little bit more tape. I'm gonna add another piece here. We're kind of creating like a tic-tac-toe board a little bit. Wherever you lay your tape, make sure that you are getting it in the exact spot that you want it in, because this is the napkin, and if you try to pull your tape up, the napkin will come up too. So just make sure before you lay it down, it is in the exact spot that you want it in. So I'm gonna hold that up so you guys can see it. So it's just a little grid. And then we are going to grab some floral and we're just gonna stick it right in there. And so the tape just kind of helps it stay in place the same way that your floral foam would. If you would prefer to use floral foam, you can definitely grab some at a dollar store or a craft store. It's a little bit cheaper at the dollar store, or if you are like me and you order Amazon packages at least 4 times a week, you can use the styrofoam that comes with your Amazon packages. All right, so you can fill it as much as you would like to. I'm sticking them right in the holes of my taped grid. You can use wire cutters to cut the stems of your floral if it is plastic. So we'll add in just a few more pieces and then we'll grab our other finished pumpkin and we'll put them together to see what they look like. When I do floral designs, I like to keep some of my stems really long for a dramatic effect. So if your centerpiece is a little bit shorter, you can leave some of your stems long. It'll give more of a grand effect. So I think that's pretty good. We'll add in one more flower and we are done. So let me clear some of this out of my way. We'll pull over our other finished pumpkin. Actually, before I pull over my finished pumpkin, I do want to show you guys the painted wood plaque that it is sitting on. So this is the surface that I showed you guys before we got started. This is our wooded round plaque with the beads around it. And then also I have added this beaded tassel that is also on plaidonline.com into my arrangement, and I painted this with our folk art home decor chalk color, black currant, and then I went over it with our folk art pure gold metallic color. So if you want to add to your centerpiece, you can grab this surface and you can grab this beaded garland. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to switch to our front camera and we will see what these look like together. So this is our centerpiece. I hope you guys enjoyed this project. If you guys do not have any questions before we get out of here, we will see you next week with another fun Mod Podge project. Again, you guys can find all of the products that we use for this project on plaidonline.com. If you do make this at home, please use #PlaidCrafts so that we can see it and thumbs up it. And we will see you guys next week with another fun project. Thank you guys so much